The state of Israel has to protect itself, has to protect its children, has to protect its land and its sovereignty for future generations. I got to meet an amazing man who I believe was played a pivotal role in the history of the United States with President Trump, and especially here in Israel. And that's Aryeh Lightstone. He was a top aide to Ambassador David Friedman and a main part of what happened with the Abraham Accords, which the Trump administration did not get the credit that it needed, that it deserved for one of the most historical documents and compromises made here in the Middle East, in modern history. I mean, it was literally shifted the geopolitical system here and brought essentially peace to this part of the world. And the Biden administration has basically, turned over, destroyed everything that President Trump has done. And it is sad, but I was so grateful to meet Rabbi, actually, Aryeh Lightstone, who worked so closely with Ambassador David Friedman on this. And he told us this fascinating story about the background of the Abraham Accords, also what happened with the movement of the embassy from Tel Aviv, moving that embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And I hope to bring him on the show so he can tell his own stories in his own voice. But I got to tell you, it is so significant what happened here in Israel during the Trump administration and the great work that Jared Kushner did should not be underestimated. It is probably one of the most important things because it has kept this part of the world from dissolving into another war. And what we've seen under the Biden administration has been that reversal of everything that the Trump administration has done. And you can see the tensions rising. You see Iran becoming more emboldened. You see Hamas and Hezbollah acting up again. You see the Palestinian movement. Again, another, what we believe might be another intifada on the rise, another war against Israel. And all of this at the same time, the Biden administration is handing the olive branch to the Iranian government, pushing for reigniting the JCPOA, which is the Iran nuclear deal. And it is absolutely the wrong way to go. It is shifting our world in the wrong direction. It is emboldening our adversaries. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about why this affects you and every single American. And guess what? Fact. While I have been here in Israel with Tom Homan and talking to Israeli counterparts in the Israeli Defense Forces and talking to experts here that deal with border security, the Israelis already know that Hamas has been working with the cartels in Mexico. Absolute fact. They've said it on the record. They know it's been happening. And Hamas has actually assisted and aided the cartels in making tunnels, very similar to the same tunnels that I have seen here and I've been invited to with Israeli Defense Forces. So we're going to talk about that and so much more. But first, my good friend, Eduardo Verastegui, I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am for him, Mira Sorvino, and all these other phenomenal actors who have now finally gotten the platform that they need to get the movie Sound of Freedom out. Sound of Freedom. This is about trafficking, the trafficking of children. I've had a private screening of this film. I actually saw it in Mexico City with Eduardo, and it is a phenomenal film. Every year, and I want you to listen to this, every year, over 2 million children are trafficked around the world. You've seen my reports. You've seen what we have shown you on Fox News and here on the Sara Carter Show. Now there is a new movie aimed to raise awareness to this often unseen horror, folks. The Sound of Freedom from Angel Studios. The release date, Sound of Freedom. It will be in theaters in the United States on July 4th, 2023. Please go see the film. Everyone must see it. It is an incredible film. It is a great film. The actors are phenomenal in it, and every single one of them wants to see child trafficking end. Every single one of them. I'm working with them. They're working all over the world in an effort to stop child trafficking, but we can't do it without you. Ticket information. Purchase tickets online. New theaters are added daily, so check the website for current information at angel.com/freedom. I want to say that again, angel.com/freedom. I was with Eduardo in Mexico. I was with Rosie Orozco. She's been on my show, former congresswoman from Mexico who now lives in the United States and works with me on fighting human trafficking. We were together when we saw this film. This film is moving, it's beautiful, and it's important. I want you to think about these statistics. More than 500,000 children a year go missing in the United States alone. More than 50% of those victims are between the ages of 12 and 15. Globally, 27% of human trafficking victims are children. Help spread this message worldwide, folks. Sound of Freedom is coming to theaters July 4th, so buy your tickets today to reserve a spot opening week. You're not going to want to miss this. If more theaters are sold out, it will help raise awareness of this issue that often goes unnoticed. You and I can make a difference. Find a theater near you by visiting angel.com/freedom. By supporting the Sound of Freedom, you will contribute in raising awareness and propelling the movement to save millions of children around the world. Get your tickets today at angel.com/freedom. That's angel.com/freedom. So let's talk a little bit about what happened and why I believe it's so important that we focus on our relationship with Israel. So Aryeh Lightstone came to the dinner. It was our final dinner. Some people joked around. It was the Last Supper here at our trip was coming to an end. Our Defend the Border and Save Lives trip is actually really not over. We're taking everything back with us. All of the great people that were on this trip, they're heading back to their prospective states to talk to their lawmakers saying, hey, wake up. We need to defend our border. We need to defend America. We need to work with our allies and do the best job that we can to not only save lives, because this is a humanitarian crisis, right? Sound of Freedom is an example of that, why this movie was made, but to protect our own children and our communities. And Aryeh Lightstone, he is from Colorado. He's an American citizen, of course, who has lived in Israel now for about 6 years. And he came to the dinner Monday night. He worked with Ambassador David Friedman, who I think is a phenomenal human being. I hope I get to meet him. I hope I get to speak with him sometime. And Lightstone was his former top aide, worked with him hand in hand with President Trump's plan right here in Israel, not only to move the embassy from Tel Aviv, which, by the way, almost every modern president has promised and never fulfilled, but not only to move the embassy to Jerusalem, but to work on the Abraham Accords, to work on a solution to the problems that we have in the Middle East. Because these are problems that are not just here. They affect the entire world. They affect the entire world. Finding a solution to what is happening in this area of the world is vitally important. And anyways, he played a key role in this and played a key role as well in moving, I guess, the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And by the way, so quickly. People thought it would take 12 years. It took literally months. And that was because of Ambassador Friedman. And that was because of Rabbi Lightstone as well, who worked alongside him. And it was, I think, so unheard of because everybody had warned President Trump. And I know this even from President Trump, right? That everybody had warned him, if you move the embassy, you're going to start World War III. There's going to be a war in the Middle East. Everything's going to fall apart. Oh yeah, we all promise it, but we don't really mean it. No, they all promise it. You're right. And they lie to us. And then they walk away from it. And they think we're going to forget. Well, President Trump said, no way. And Ambassador David Friedman was like, look, we can do this. And not only can we do this in a few months, he said, Lightstone and I can do this for the cost of like $250,000 to maybe $400,000, which was so much cheaper than the tens of millions that they were looking at, maybe even hundreds of millions that was going to cost to move this embassy, considering all costs. And they did it like that. And we had an opportunity to actually go to the embassy and stand there and, here in Jerusalem, and it's beautiful and it's overlooking the city. And it recognizes, by putting the embassy there, what we are saying to the Israeli people and the rest of the world, mind you, including all the Arab nations around. And this is something that Lightstone talked about at the dinner, was that we recognize Israel's right to exist. That we recognize that Jerusalem is the heart of this great nation and that it has a right to exist. And before, it was like this weird iffy thing, right? Like everybody knew Jerusalem was the capital. You'd have to be, if you traveled through here and you didn't know that, then you'd have to have a few marbles loose because everybody knows this is the capital. But because we didn't represent it and because other nations didn't have their consulates here or their embassies here, it was always like this kind of weird iffy thing. Like, well, does Jerusalem then belong to the Palestinians? Is it always going to be questioned? Trump ended that. He said, no, there's no question. Jerusalem is the heart of Israel. And that's what happened. And I thought it was kind of neat because I was talking to Aryeh before he went up and did this phenomenal speech. And I'm not going to even attempt to try to tell his stories because I want to bring him on the podcast. I want him to say that to you directly. I don't want to be the one to tell the story. But before he gave his speech, we were talking and he was saying he was talking about his son. And I was telling him this amazing experience that I had at the wall, at the Wailing Wall. That's the Western Wall, as everyone knows it. And how when I got there, and I could see the people, we were there during Shabbat. And yes, the Western Wall is for Christians too. You can go there. I mean, it's a traditionally a very, very holy place for the Jewish people. And it's a place where you speak directly to God. That's the belief. That the wall itself, that the place itself is connected directly to God. There's no intermediary. It's you and God. And that's why so many people go and they put their prayers. And I did that. I mean, I just put I had maybe 10, little pieces of paper with thousands of words on them because I was praying for everyone. I was praying for our country. I was praying for my family, praying for my children, praying for my friends. And I wrote everything I could down. So we get to the Western Wall, the area of the Western Wall, and it's Shabbat. So traditionally, you should not have any electronics on you. Okay. So people who want to sneak their phones in, and I know a couple of people that did, they got their pictures at the wall, at the Western Wall. I did not get my picture at the wall because I left my phone in the bus so I wouldn't be tempted to take a picture there. And plus, I kind of wanted it to be just between me and God, right? I didn't want to think about my phone. I didn't want it to be a posing picture. I just kind of wanted it to be between me and God. But if I'm being honest with you, I really wish I would have had that picture now. But that moment actually helped me. And I get there and you come in and it was incredible, right? Because it's Shabbat and all the young people were there and there were people singing and dancing and then there were people walking to the wall and touching the wall, and there's this energy that kind of surges through the crowd. And I was telling Aryeh Lightstone, like, it really I actually felt like I was connected to something greater than myself. If people say the heart of Israel, is in Jerusalem, the heart of Jerusalem is at the Western Wall. It really is. You can feel that energy. And so I was with all my gal pals here that were here with me, all the girlfriends. And so it divides between one side for the men and one side in Orthodox tradition for the women. And so as I'm walking towards the wall and everybody's kind of lined up, and there was a gentleman who handed me some prayers, and I had all of my little notes wrapped up in my prayers, wrapped up small and tight so I could put them in the wall. As I'm walking up, all these young Jewish girls were singing these kind of old songs, and prayer books were in their hands, and some of them were laughing and singing together. So it's a kind of a celebration of life in a way. And it's kind of a moment where you give God all of your worries and you say, God, just kind of take these worries from me. Take these worries from me. And Aryeh actually said something that was really, really cute. He said his son was 4 years old when they first went to the wall. And I'm sure he's going to tell the story. But when he talked about the story, he said his son went to the wall and, said all his prayers. And then they left the wall. And then his son said, you know what, Dad, I have to go back. And he was like, why? He goes, because I forgot to say please and thank you to God before and after, I made my prayers. And you always tell me to say, thank you and please. And at that moment, Aryeh and I are talking about this at dinner and saying just how little civility we see in the world now. His son's 4 years old and he wants to go back. And even in his prayer to God, because he's been raised the right way, he feels the need to say thank you and please to God, like please God, whatever the prayer is, and thank you for listening and thank you for answering my prayers. Well, that's kind of the way we should be to one another, right? And we should even when we're the most angriest at someone, for example, negotiating, right? Dealing with Hamas, dealing with Hezbollah, dealing with Jordan, dealing with Saudi Arabia. I mean, remember, there was the 6-Day War. And in the 1960s, I mean, every Arab nation surrounding Israel tried to attack it. And if not for a miracle and the assistance of the United States of America and the fortitude of the Israeli soldiers that stood on the front lines, many who lost their lives, the state of Israel would not exist. That's the truth. And I saw those battlefields and I saw those names. And the reason I bring that up in what, Aryeh told me about his young child is because even in those moments, even in a place like this with turmoil, right? With turmoil, you have to find a way to talk to one another. You have to find a way to believe, to have some kind of hope for your children and for the future. We're not going to get rid of all the bad guys, but we have to find compromise. And that's another lesson that we should learn in America. We are so angry at each other. We are so angry, and we allow these boneheads in Washington, D.C., and, in our bureaucracy to divide us. You have to take a step back and remember why our nation is so special. And that was the message that Aryeh Lightstone was delivering. And this is somebody who he and David Friedman, are going to go down in the history books as some of the most significant and accomplished leaders in foreign policy in modern history from the United States. And when you're in Israel and you realize that every single day there is a challenge, every day there could be a missile lobbed at you. I still have a few hours left, but I was grateful that while I was here, I didn't see one rocket, one missile. I've seen that before in war zones. And the Iron Dome, and then all of that we see on the news. There are enemies out there that all they want to do, like Iran, with, of course, the Biden administration handing the olive branch out, that want to wipe this nation off the face of the earth. They want to kill every Jewish person. It is in their mind. It is in their doctrine. So this state of Israel, which they say is the size of New Jersey, right? This state of Israel has to protect itself, has to protect its children, has to protect its land, the land, and its sovereignty for future generations. And you know what? They do it not only with faith, but with smarts. And they do it and they care. And every single day, young soldiers are out there guarding the border. They're using technology. They're talking to allies. And you know what? They are working with their neighbors, despite everything that those neighbors have done to them. And I know you hear a lot of stories from the leftist media in America, and they say things. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe they haven't been here. Maybe they haven't seen Gaza the way I've seen it. Give them that opportunity. But this is not a land of apartheid. This is a land of a people that have a right to exist and a right to live and a right to protect themselves. And folks, that is the way you need to think about the United States of America, our nation. You have the right to exist. Your children have the right to live in peace. Your children should grow up in a nation that isn't overwhelmed by fentanyl and gangs and tragedy and hardship. But you can't ask the government to do it for you. You have to be a part of the solution. You have to be part of resolving this crisis. And you have to take action. And sometimes it's going to seem hard. And this is something that Aryeh Lighthouse said too, and it was kind of a light bulb moment for him. And I don't want to go into a story, but the light bulb moment was that sometimes you're in the right place when somebody asks you to do something. Just like when Tom Homan and Tom Trento asked me out of nowhere, would you come to Israel with us on this Defend the Border and Save Lives project and spend time there and learn? And without even thinking, and I don't know why, I said yes. And it has changed my life. And I will always be grateful for this trip. And I will always be grateful for this nation. And I plan on coming back multiple times. And the funny thing is, we can sometimes take a step back and look at a situation. And I hope you guys do this. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about religion. Don't talk about anything else other than what America stands for, what we stand for, and maybe just reach out a little bit. Maybe there's somebody out there you can reach out to that isn't going to, come after you or try to, point a finger at you because you supported Trump or because you're a conservative. Just maybe somebody you haven't seen in a long time. Take them out to lunch. Maybe it's a relative. Don't talk about politics. Talk about what's important, about our nation, about our principles, and about our future. We have a right to save our country, and we have a right to protect our borders. You and I. Folks, gold and silver allow you to protect what you've worked so hard for and give you back the control and privacy that you need. And because reputation is very important to me, the only company I recommend is Allegiance Gold. And right now you can get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. So don't wait. Call or click today. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, S-A-R-A. Or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, folks. You know that, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA. Or protectwithsara.com. So I'll be flying back home today. I'm going to share so much more about this amazing trip in our upcoming episodes. And I want to tell you a little something. I did go up to the Wailing Wall. I put my hands on that wall and I laid my head against that stone and I said my prayers to God. And I lifted those prayers for our nation, for each and every one of us. I really hope there is a direct line to the big guy. And I'm not talking about the one in the White House. I'm talking about the real big guy, the one up there, because I want him to protect all of us. But I also want to tell you, such an amazing feeling overwhelmed me to think that for thousands of years, so many people have been doing the same thing. And guess what, folks? We're not that different from each other. We all have problems. We all have issues. Nobody is perfect. Doesn't matter how much money you have or how little money you have. Doesn't matter if you're sick or if you're feeling healthy. It doesn't matter who you are or what your economic circumstances are in or what country you live in or what language you speak. We are all the same. We're all human beings on this planet for a short period of time. Let's make the most of it. Let's share that love with our children. Let's make this a beautiful place to live, and let's protect our beautiful nation. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on Twitter at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation. God bless the great state of Israel, our true ally in this part of the world. And God bless the great state of Texas.